let's go to different forms of, well, dysfunctional disabilities, whatever you want to call it. Next Wednesday, the National Cabinet meets, and top of the agenda is the NDIS. Now, the government's under a lot of pressure to rein in spending. The NDIS is, obviously the biggest target. Bill Shorten is trying to sort this out. Good luck. The NDIS, by the end of the decade, I've worked out, is going to cost around $64 billion a year. So think about this: for every dollar that you go and give to the government in tax that you spend and petrol taxes, whatever it is, it'll be about $1 in every 10 that's going to the NDIS.
Unbelievable.
So here is our Sky News colleague, Andrew Clennell. This is this morning about what he expects to come out of National Cabinet.
And I'm tipping a deal on the NDIS to emerge out of National Cabinet in exchange for some extra GST and hospital funds for the states. The PM will announce that some disorders, such as certain levels of autism, will now be exempt from the NDIS scheme, and that's to attempt to reduce the cost growth of the scheme.
So here's the thing, Paul. The states are stuffed financially. Victoria's a basket case. And so part of this is actually a transfer of money into the states. But then whether you get better outcomes for the NDIS by doing this, you are not guaranteed whatsoever, because they are so cash-strapped themselves.
You know those street performers who say, here's a P, it's underneath the cup. Now, which one is it? And then none of them in the end, right? We are falling for the game between a Labor federal government and Labor state governments, right? Which is the great success and the great ability of wall-to-wall means you can actually get some stuff done, right? Normally the capacity where, Victoria goes away and has a rip at the PM or somebody, you've got a chance to do something here. Instead, we're going in with a bit of a fake fight to come up with a fake solution. Now, the Labor Party is in a position, because of its control of the people who work in the system and large parts of the sectors that are quite loyal to the Labor Party, that in the same way that in many ways it's only Conservative governments that can bring around sort of societal change, because frankly they don't whip up the forces against it. Equally so, the economic change on something like disability can only be put into place by a left-wing government, because all the interest groups generally have some connection to it. So what is being offered here is not a solution to the problem. What we are seeing here is the fiddle-buggerise around not even the edges, the outer, in order to make it look like they're getting a win. Because if they were going to get a win, it'd have a B after it and it'd be starting next year.
No, I very respectfully, but I disagree. I know you're very cynical, and rightly so in many ways, but I can absolutely assure you, Bill Shorten is 100% on this. This is where he will fulfil wants to fulfil his prime ministerial ambitions. This is he wants and needs this to be his great lasting legacy, so he's remembe's. So again, even if you're going to be cynical, say Bill's just doing it for Bill, but he's definitely doing it, and it is totally sincere. It is completely. He's hard-hearted. He's hard-headed rather. He's a smart man who knows that the numbers just don't add up and it's not sustainable. It's something that people like myself have been warning about for years and years and years. And you had all these people say, no, just give me the money, give me the money, give me the money. And if you don't, you hate disabled people. He's gone in there. The states have arced up because they know just how big the problem is. They know how easy, for example, it is to get an autism diagnosis. And I say this with someone whose best mate is a quadriplegic, and I know plenty of people with autism, including in my own family. But the NDIS has become the problem is it's become led by whatever the suppliers want to charge and whatever the person is entitled to, not what the person might need from the government.
But the reform, the number of people who are going to become disabled as we go forward, the exponential rise in that.
So the problem is
mental health.
The problem is not people with autism who are rewarding the system. It's the problem is a system that says all you need is to get an autism diagnosis and suddenly you'll be eligible for all this. Of course, people
here's where the reform comes in. All right, if you're the minister that is as committed as they are, I don't know whose job is it in the NDIS to save money. Right? Whose full-time job is to turn around and say, because we've all heard the stories and the government has given us plenty of examples of the $100 plastic shower chair that's being charged for $4,000. Where is the prosecution of somebody who's putting that rip-off in? Where is the mechanism in the scheme?
This is a minister, and he's going, Shorten will do that. And he's
Sure, but what I'm saying is that if you want normal people, or even people who are a little down on the government, to believe there's a change here, they need to know that it's someone's job, frankly, to look after the petty cash. Not to say no to a disabled person, but to say to the person trying to charge, and I know they're trying to get there.
But they are prosecuting people. They're sending people to jail. They are charging them.
Yeah, but I'm saying that but if it's going to be a if the fix is National Cabinet mucking around, that's not the fix. I want to see a minister talking regularly about what happens to people.
The problem is that there's things. So instead of, for example, making sure that schools have the resources to deal with autistic kids in the classroom or within the school community, people are saying, well, you don't need to do that because you can just use NDIS funding to get a tutor and you catch up that way. And that's better for the state. Thinks, great, we don't have to put that extra teacher on or whatever. And the person with the autistic son or daughter says, great, and we get all this money to pay for a tutor and that's better anyway. So what he's saying is that the existing infrastructure in the states has to be better resourced, and in some cases better funded with that extra revenue, if that's the way they decide to do it, so that people are looked after and having their needs met without just saying, look, here's this, bucket of money and all you need to do is get this form signed and that form signed and blah, 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 and you can have it regardless of what your needs actually are.
But Liz,
still incredibly problematic.
This is problematic because I know about compound interest and I know the way in which this is going to grow and grow.
Yes.
It's not going to get smaller, it's going to get bigger. And yes, they might help some costs along the way. They might prosecute some people and good luck to them for doing that. But the actual cost of the whole service is something you've got to raise questions about whether Australia can afford it. It's got to work out where the edges of this are. They've got to be very hard because if they're at all malleable and the system can be gained.
Or you just wait till your minority government that Teal's suggesting an NDIS levy and we end up with a new tax.
But also something nobody's talking about is the increase in autism within our population throughout the West. Trump has made some very refreshing, I absolutely love it, election promises around this, around getting to the bottom of what they're seeing happen similarly in America. Years and years and years ago, people like to say, oh no, we didn't hear about it years and years ago because, it was less documented and less understood, etc. and so on. No, the situation is thus. We have not had this many people presenting with these kinds of disorders at these numbers ever before.
But
to our knowledge, we need to be looking into the causes.
I don't know. There's a lot of psychologists who say that they're overrepresented because of the way the system's set up to incentivise people to go and get those diagnoses. Right. There's an autism expert who's come out and said you can pay $5,000, get an autism diagnosis for your child, then they're eligible for the NDIS and all sorts of services you usually had to pay out of your pocket for. I mean, there's between 5 and 7-year-old boys, 11% of them are on the NDIS right now. I highly doubt that the cynic in me, the sceptical journalist, highly doubts there's that number of autistic or boys with ADHD. Perhaps there are behavioural problems.
Although there's
the problem.
There's also
and when it becomes that field becomes so overcrowded, the only way to get any attention for your child is to also get a diagnosis. And so I've got friends and I've had people say to me, you've got to get a diagnosis quickly so that you can actually get the thing to, and so it starts.
But it's interesting you say that particular demographic, because just quickly, many psychologists, most notably Dr. Jordan Peterson, says it's because boys that age aren't supposed to be sat stationary for 8 hours at school every single day, and then they go, oh, he's got ADHD, or he's got
which
some
the Greens also want to put on the NDIS, by the way. They want to add ADHD to it.
But it's unnatural what we're putting them through.
Well, I'll tell you what, we are going to take a break here, but the point, that conversation really shows just how sensitive a topic that is for, in particular, the government, and certainly for the future governments as well.